like, if, you know, my initial thoughts were it could be a stroke, and I was terrified of that, and I just wanted to get to the hospital right away because I wanted to be seen.
Terrifying, but you just have to take things a step at a time. People with a lot worse live meaningful and full lives, and I don't want her to be defined by it or held back by it.
Acne. I've never had acne.
No acne, not a single.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Enid, and today I am joined by my mother, and today we're talking about just a mother's perspective, having a child that has all these medical issues like I have, and my life has basically been going to doctor's visits often and medications and stuff like that. So and this might be helpful for some of you maybe who are dealing with this as well. Maybe you're a parent. And so yeah, and so this is my mom, Nikki.
Hello.
And so we're gonna ask her some questions and maybe have a little chat. Have questions as well, you can put them in the comments maybe, and I can ask her and respond to your comments. But anyways, so let's start with the first question. So I guess the first diagnosis that I had was Turner syndrome.
Yeah.
And how did you feel about that? Like, what was going through your mind?
Well, from the minute she was born, she was told she wasn't growing the way she was supposed to, and I was shocked because I thought she was doing just fine. Yes, she was a little thing, but she was always behind the curve or never on the curve. And so the doctor kept requiring that I take her in for weighings and that sort of thing, or supplementing the food. So it was that was pretty eye-opening, because I didn't think there was really much in the way of growth issues. And then I think she was 6 or 7 or whatever. You know, we went to see a doctor about growth, and he made he kept saying how he smelled a rat. He smelled a rat because he was looking at the height of her father and the height of me, and that she didn't seem to fit, and that he smelled a rat. And I was perplexed by that, because I thought, what does smelling a rat mean? And that was never clarified. Oh, and I asked him what was wrong with being small, and he said that's fine if you live in Chiapas, Mexico, but not in Orange County, California. So I thought that was also another bizarre statement, but I was still kind of in the weeds as to why this was a problem to be small. And then eventually a nurse practitioner did the blood test and called me up one evening and said, I'm so sorry to tell you that she has Turner syndrome. And I said, oh, okay, thank you, and hung up the phone and thought, why is she sorry? I'd never heard of such a thing. And of course, then you have to read up about these things. So
and I'm sure that, like, my whole family is short, so I'm sure it was just, you probably always figured I would be short anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, luckily I've had the growth hormone. I just know that I probably, you know, like, I feel much more like I feel like the same height as my family pretty much. I would have been much shorter if I hadn't had the growth hormone. How are you dealing with it now, and how do you feel about, like, all the appointments I go to and stuff I'm always put on?
Well, I was going to say the appointments have got less, but actually they haven't, because she keeps adding nice little juicy, interesting twists and turns in her development. But you have to say the doctor's appointments really get old, because you have to go like 4 times a year. You have to do the blood work, then you have to go to the for Turner syndrome you're going to the endocrinologist, and the wait times in these children's hospitals are really long, which means you're taking time out of work, and then you drive, or school or whatever, and you sit there forever, sometimes way over an hour, 2 hours, and so that can get a bit mind-blowing after a while. But when the doctors come in, they're always so amazing, and you know, and that's probably why they're behind the curve, because they're giving extra time to people. So it's worrying, and but actually for Enid and I, it was a time, knew at the time that we'd always look back and think, well, the time in the waiting rooms was really our time together. I mean, we'd play silly games with the whiteboards, and when they said the wait time was 15 minutes, we'd erase the 1 to 5 minutes so that maybe it would just speed things up, you know, things like that. So actually tedious when you're trying to fit it into everything else that goes on in life. But
I'm sure for you as a mother, it's quite such a contrast, like, compared to my sister, who is, like, seems completely healthy and doesn't have as many of these appointments to go to and stuff like that. So it's all of that is, like, focused on me, as you know, I have more health issues. So let's talk about my next diagnosis that I had was rheumatoid arthritis. I was about 12.
Yeah. And again, you don't know anything about these. Never heard of Turner syndromes or that there was really that many different kinds of growth disorders out there. I mean, who knew that stuff? And then rheumatoid arthritis, nobody in our family had it, wasn't looking or expecting that. And she woke up in pain, had a pain in a really bad pain in her foot, so excruciating. Enid is the most stoic person. If she feels sick, you better make sure that there's something she can be sick in, because she doesn't moan or complain, or it's real when she says something. So she was going on about this pain in her foot, and we had to go take her to the hospital because it was so bad and I didn't know what it was, and the doctors didn't know what it was in the emergency room either. They gave her codeine or something and sent her home. So then we had to go to the primary care doctor, who sent her to a neurologist and a rheumatologist. Actually, I think we went to the rheumatologist first, and it was the rheumatologist that diagnosed it. So there was a whole other thing that we had to learn about. Which
I think like when we went to the emergency room that one time, because my foot was so bad and so badly in pain, and they said it looked like I had a fracture or something.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So that's what we thought it was for a bit, but it also didn't explain that later on I started getting pain in my hands, and as well, so I started off with pain in my hands and feet, and later on it spread to like, you know, all over. And so that's when I eventually got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And then I had surgery on my hands. To get like the fluid out of my hands, and then after that I was put on Enbrel, which I think Enbrel should have been done first before even the surgery. I mean, yeah, whatever procedure it was, because my hands, you can't really see them, but they're damaged from that procedure, and I think if I was just put on the Enbrel right away, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, and I've thought about that because I was frustrated. What they did was they injected steroid into her hand because they were so swollen. And I think the thought process with that particular doctor was that maybe this wasn't going to be systemic, or that she might outgrow. It might be juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which many children outgrow. So I think she thought, well, since it's predominantly only in the wrists and these hands are so swollen, let's take the fluid out so we don't have to give her a systemic drug. I think that's what she was thinking. But she injected steroid in the hands, which eats the subcutaneous layer of fat under the skin. So now it's almost like her beautiful hands look almost like she might have been burned or something. It's because that layer of skin has gone away. And then that later, fast forward a couple of more years, that then compromised the tendons in her hands.
Yeah,
so now these two fingers she can't lift up.
This one it's better now because I went to physical therapy, but this one
she can't lift it any higher.
Yeah.
So my question then was, well, why did the doctor do that and not just put her straight away on Enbrel? But looking back and having discussed it with other doctors, I think the idea was maybe it's only going to manifest in her wrists, and then she doesn't need to be on a systemic drug. I hope that's what they were thinking, because that makes sense to me. So
yeah, like all these things just kept happening, and obviously I had these inflammation problems. So knowing that I am, I guess, prone to autoimmune stuff and inflammation in my body.
Well, she was talking about an upset stomach, and of course every time she tells me something's wrong, I just think, oh, please make this nightmare end, and try and ignore it for a few days. And I thought because she was taking, the rheumatoid arthritis was so bad at the time and none of the drugs were working, and she was now at college in Hawaii and she couldn't climb on her bunk, and sometimes she thought she needed a wheelchair, and then she had this upset stomach, so she was taking a lot of Aleve. And I thought, well, maybe it's just because she's taking so much Aleve that it's causing distress in her stomach. So when she did come back, we went to a gastroenterologist, and he said, well, let's do a colonoscopy anyway. And when he came back with the Crohn's diagnosis, I went, oh, really? I mean, I've got irritable bowel, I've had colon cancer. I mean, I just thought maybe she had the same issues I have. So when he came back with Crohn's, I thought, really? The poor little thing doesn't need something else. The good news that came out of that, though, was that is probably what, according to the rheumatologist, that's probably what was exacerbating the rheumatoid arthritis and why she was struggling. There was two concurrent things going on. The gastroenterologist wanted her to go on to Humira instead, so this was a drug we hadn't been on, because that's a good drug for most autoimmune diseases, but specifically Crohn's disease, and that seems to be working for both the RA and the Crohn. So if there's any good news to have come out of that, then the Humira has been a godsend since she's been on it. Let's just hope it stays that way. So
what's interesting to me is it seems like all the common things people get, like having to get their wisdom teeth removed, or
Allergies.
Yeah, allergies.
Or colds.
Things that are common for people to have, like medical issues or procedures that need to be done for them. I somehow, like, I get like the rare stuff, which I find interesting. Like anything you can think of that you can talk to most people and they would have had to go through that, I didn't have to. I'm trying to think of stuff right now, but yeah. And I guess like the last
acne.
You
didn't have any? No acne, not a single pimple. Yeah.
The last thing that I was been diagnosed with recently was the cavernoma. So how did you feel when I was obviously in London and I called you or texted you when I had this whole speech thing that I couldn't talk very well, and then I was at the hospital and telling you what was going on? How did you, like, what was your thoughts in the moment?
Well, the first reaction is always, oh, what now? And then you get nervous of your phone. I have to say, there's this sort of terror goes through you when I wake up with it from, to a text from her. I'm just like, and when it's a good text, then you almost become programmed to this, So when this was terrifying. Anything to do with the brain, I didn't know what to think. I mean, I tend to go into a real calm zone out. I mean, what are you going to do? I'm halfway around the world. We don't know. I always go back to, look, cross that bridge when you come to it. It may not be the worst thing, so why jump to the worst thing? I went for a walk because I couldn't sit at my desk. I thought of all the world's worst scenarios. I thought, what if this is the end? What if I lose my child? You just don't know. And then you think, well, I'm not going to worry about it till I have more information. She was in really good hands. She had two really good friends with her. She was at the hospital. The doctor did speak to me, and he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said it's good news. It's not a tumor, I think. But, you still don't know whatever this cavernoma, again, never heard of these things. I'm thinking, my goodness, all these things we have to learn in life that we never thought we'd ever have to learn. So terrifying, but you just have to take things a step at a time. What choice do you have, and then trying to gather the information and just not knowing really what to do, feeling ill-equipped to deal with these things.
To me, that's the scariest thing I've ever been through, because I obviously, when that happened, I was panicking. That's a really scary situation to go through, and that's the scariest thing I've ever been through ever. And so, like, my initial thoughts were it could be a stroke, and I was terrified of that, and I just wanted to get to the hospital right away because I wanted to be seen.
How do I feel about the coronavirus and Enid? At first I was really concerned because you keep hearing people who have compromised health situations. But just like she said earlier, for some reason she doesn't seem to get the typical things. I know coronavirus isn't a typical thing, but I'm just putting my faith in the fact that she rarely gets a cold.
I tend, like, even though I have a weak immune system, I guess I get less sick than other people. Like, I feel like it's also the medications that I'm on as well that
but you're only on one medication. You're only
whatever. I've been on other stuff before though, but you know what I mean. Like, the medication that I'm on strengthens immune systems, so maybe that's a part of it, but I don't know.
And again, we're taking precautions, and she's not going out unless she has to and that sort of thing, but she has to live her life as well. People with a lot worse live meaningful and full lives, and I don't want her to be defined by it or held back by it. The cost of everything. We are very, very fortunate that we have good health insurance, and also that we don't have tons of money, but we can manage to pay for the expenses. But I have to tell you, if you didn't have access to good health care or residual funds, I hope that there are programs in place for people to get the help they need. When I've gone to Children's Hospital of Orange County, it is full of children, and I wonder to myself, how are they affording it? And I can only assume that they're getting some kind of financial aid. I really don't know, and I haven't looked into it. Humira, I don't know how much Humira is, but I know Enbrel was something like $5,000 a month or something like that. But and insurance often doesn't cover it, or covers some of it or half of it. But then you get got an extra card they offered to me from, I can't even remember the company, but anyway, I don't pay anything for the medication, not even the $5 copay, or occasionally the $5 copay. You have to apply for this I didn't go out after it. They offered it to me and said, oh, you should apply for this card and then you don't have to cover the copay. So again, I'm hoping that there are programs in place for people. I would imagine that there is. Her brain surgery, for example, where the bill came in, was $96,000. We ended up only having to pay $6,000 of it. But can you imagine, $6,000 could destroy a family. So, but $96,000, and that's with health insurance. I don't even think about that stuff because it would really make me physically sick to think about it, and really petrified, and would almost make me want to scurry off and live in a country where it's the healthcare's free. But having come from England, the healthcare's free, but you wait a very long time to be seen and taken care of. And I haven't lived there for 30 years, so maybe I'm wrong. So anyway, that's my answer to that question. I'm just fortunate. They're very fortunate. What advice would I give to other mothers with kids like Enid? Well, there's other mothers with kids who are far more compromised than Enid. So if you met Enid, you would never know that there was anything wrong with her. She's not deficient, she looks beautiful, nobody would ever know. Oh, the other thing she's going to have to deal with, we haven't talked about, is the fact that her infertility, that's going to be some kind of adventure we have in the future. I don't know what that's going to look like. There is always a worse situation. All I care about is if she's happy, then I'm not worried. It's only when your children are sad, and when they're really sad, and she's had moments of being down, but really she's such a happy little person. I'm so grateful for that every single day. I think the mental health is more important than anything. I think mums are just soldiers. What are you going to do? I mean, you have to
our parents, and
you have to respond to every situation that comes your way, and I'm sure most mums will handle it with courage. And what else can you do? Use the resources offered to you. Take advantage of help in any way. My advice to mums is it is what it is, and you just have to do it. I mean, that seems a bit simplistic, but that's what it is.
I think like what I've seen from you, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of parents dealing with the same situation, is their child obviously has to be strong and go through all these things. So I think the parents feel they need to take that on. They need to be strong as well. And if their child is being strong over these scary things, how can a parent, be scared and scare their children more? And I think all you can do really is just, you can't be frightened for your child, or your child's going to be even more frightened. So,
and try and see that this is, try and look at it as a way of connecting the two of you. Like, how can this make us stronger, or love each other more, or there's magic in these crazy situations. I know it sounds awful, but when you have to face fear at the same time. Or from my point of view, being English, I don't want to cry in front of her or show raw emotion, and if I do, she just looks freaked out. So from a mum's point of view, I guess some mums would, it's hard for the mother too, but you're in that survival mode. You just have to do what you have to do. So,
well, thank you. That's the end of our little conversation. Thank you for watching, and I will leave my social medias in the description below. And please like and subscribe if you liked this video and like my channel, and we'll make more videos like this. Thank you.